The first song wasn't hers. It waited in a gas station gift shop off I-40 near Flagstaff. A blue cassette with cloudy windows and a handwritten label. Do not skip, side A. On the back, block letter rules. Leave a track list, leave a task, leave the tape somewhere new within a week. Maya bought it because curiosity always clears. She scavenged a thrift store Walkman 2 exits later and pressed play. Sam Cooke opened a door into summer. An indie bridge song crossed after it. A clinky live recording made a room audible. At the end, a warm voice, too close to the mic, repeated the rules and left a city and date. Austin, last month. Inside the J card, a task. Watch a sunset without photographing it. Write 3 things the light makes honest. She parked outside Holbrook and tried being cameraless. Her list surprised her. The motel's peeling paint was romantic from a distance and honest up close. Trucks looked like patience when they moved together. The word almost took more room than yes. She copied the tracks, added a dusty live cut of a song she used to play at open mics, and slid the cassette into a little free library in Gallup. A week later, a Santa Fe shop posted the same blue plastic under a ceramic coyote. 2 days after that, a Portland record store showed Side B, New City, fresh pencil tracks, the spine of the original still visible. The handwriting started to feel familiar. An architect's print, ours leaning left as if bracing for crosswind. The tasks were small and shameless. Buy someone drip coffee, ride 3 bus stops past your own, and list good reasons people keep going. Memorize a stranger dog's name and use it once. By November, the cassette had traveled farther than any relationship Maya had risked since leaving Nashville with a guitar she didn't open for a year. It surfaced in Chicago with lake air trapped in its case, in Asheville smelling like campfire and hand soap, in New Orleans under a brass band flyer, and disappeared for 2 weeks into a city that owed explanations to no one. It returned to San Diego, the city Maya had chosen for its ocean therapy and distance from her ex's calendar. Side A, again, the label read, with a new list stacked over old pencil. A line from the architect's hand waited at the bottom. If this reaches you twice, you're part of the loop. Claim it. 1 track, 1 task, 1 city. No names until luck insists. Luck insisted on a Tuesday. The tape appeared on the counter of the coffee shop where Maya worked while building an after-school music program. It had been left with exact change for a pour-over and a napkin that read, "For the person who hears endings first." She honored the rule. 1 track, clean studio take of a song that never escaped her throat on stage. 1 task, write 3 truths about a room you love that never belonged to you. She tucked the cassette into a North Park zine library. Replies started speaking to her without speaking to her. Santa Monica. An airport gates 3 truths: mercy, boredom, a charger, democracy. Phoenix. A church kitchen that always smelled like lemon oil and forgiveness. The architect's hand remained, not dominant, not absent, like a bass line. The tape shifted from novelty to infrastructure. Even without it, she found herself doing the assignments, ordering the opposite of instinct and discovering hash browns taste like confidence, climbing parking garage rooftops at sunrise, leaving a seat on the bus for who she might become. Betrayal arrived like a late punchline. A Venmo request from her ex, dressed as a joke, revealed a shared Big Bear booking on a work weekend, CCing a second name she recognized from an accidental airdrop months ago. He framed it as fairness. She declined, closed the remaining joint account, and drove north with no playlist. In a Carpinteria thrift bin, the blue plastic flashed back at her. Side B, now with careful, slightly stubborn block letters. The task: throw out 1 thing that hurts on sight. She dropped an old t-shirt into a donation bin and wrote the date. The loop evolved. A Seattle hobbyist digitized the tracks and hid a QR code in the case. Someone in Miami added painter's tape and a pencil stub. A Providence bookseller printed tiny do not skip cards with blank lines for assignments. The rules stayed shyly militant. Leave more than you take. Then the circle tightened. A Santa Barbara record shop tagged Maya's Cafe. Blue tape headed south again. Host, your move. Near closing, a man set the cassette on the counter with a hardware store receipt for a bookmark. He carried theater tech in his posture, economy of movement, willingness to lift weight. He slid a note card with the next task, repair one small thing and tell no one, and left with a to-go cup, nodding to the room as if making a pact with air. Maya didn't break the no-name spell. She added a spare acoustic cover and hid the cassette at a 24-hour laundromat under a spider plant. An hour later, Cities in Pencil posted a photo of it. The caption was dry and kind. Comments traded assignments like recipes. January behaved like borrowed spring. Her students added a rap verse to the digital playlist about a bus driver who knows grief by name. A nurse recorded vending machine clatter that sounded like applause if you wanted it to. A Tucson librarian added a Spanish lullaby and a task. Teach a recipe in person. The tape felt like a room. They met at the edge of that room. Maya's nonprofit hosted an unwedding fundraiser. Street clothes, toasts for who people had become, microphones financed by small bills. Half the decor came from a Santa Barbara warehouse that rented rescued wedding inventory to events without traps. An idea composted from loss. Under a strand of lights that had tried to knot and failed, she recognized the man from the cafe, or from the tape, or from the kind of internet that finds you when you're already looking. He carried chairs because chairs are a love language. He wrote his track on a flyer, Song That Forgives a Tuesday, and slipped it into the case on a table labeled Do Not Skip. No vows, no last names. Pie, applause, and teenagers who ran cables like pros. Later, much later, she learned his name was Eli from a label on a borrowed toolbox, and that he built sets for theaters that couldn't afford architects, but couldn't afford to live without magic. Earlier, she had only known his left-leaning R and the way he pressed heavier on verbs. He kept appearing like parentheses. A repaired scooter bell captioned task completed, a wrist track most people only play alone, a purchase order tucked under the cassette on a swap shelf. Chemistry arrived not with speeches but with follow-through. By March, pencil layers turned the J card into archaeology. The crowdsourced playlist held 50-plus tracks, sequenced well enough to make strangers nod at stoplights. The tasks compiled themselves into a way to live. Buy peaches, thank a public place, sit in the cheap seats like they're the best, leave a seat open on purpose, call your sister back. Then the loop glitched. The cassette stranded itself at a roadside stand outside Bakersfield. The tracking account went quiet. Without the object, the playlist felt like a speech without a podium. People posted screenshots of tasks they did anyway. Maya's students pinned index card assignments to a cork wall beneath a banner. We keep going. The object had been training them not to need it. It resurfaced in a Bakersfield pawn shop, climbed to a high shelf, and became a barter item. A trucker traded a socket set and carried it to Barstow. A tourist took it to Zion and forgot it on a picnic table. A park ranger mailed it, with a note about leaving no trace, to the San Diego Cafe because a return address had been scribbled inside by a hand, with a left-leaning R, loss and return, joined the loop's grammar. So did timing. On a Tuesday that pretended to be Friday, Maya's ex sent an apology that tried to balance with math. She didn't open it. She opened the tape instead. The latest task read, stand in a familiar doorway and choose a different room. She stood on the sidewalk outside her old building until boredom politely replaced grief, then bought ingredients for a recipe she'd teach someone on Wednesday. Spring drew contour lines. Eli went to Seattle to put rain on stage without leaks. Maya's program quietly became a district model. They traded a rule, not a promise. First Tuesdays, anywhere. Each month, they hosted tiny open-air listening clubs wherever they were. 3 under a tree, 6 on a stoop, 2 on a bus. The only requirements, a softening playlist and 1 task drawn from a jar. Summer sprinted. The tape ran a relay through Minneapolis, Nashville, and Savannah, napped in an Albuquerque drawer, stuck to a New York refrigerator with a pizza slice magnet, while roommates debated the ethics of pre-gaming with found soundtracks. Perched on a Providence library display with a tent card, take 1 task, leave 1 track. The ending, if that's the word, refused a trumpet. It chose a bench at Golden Gardens in Seattle. Late summer, kids building castles of ideas in sand. Eli returned with sawdust in his cuffs for a week off. Maya flew up for a training. Their calendars overlapped like a gift pretending to be an accident. They met where the loop had been pointing. at a map's edge with something to place between them. They didn't trade declarations. They traded tape. On the bench, the J card lay open to a blank stretch. He added a track that sounded like hope in sneakers. She added a task. Write 3 places we'd be brave enough to return together, only if we can leave early without hurting the place's feelings. They wrote, a diner with polite neon on the edge of town, a minor league ballpark where keeping score in pencil is normal, a music room that smells like wood and patience. They kept the first Tuesday's rule and added a small impolite ritual. On the last track of any playlist, stand in a doorway, look at the next room, and choose it out loud to themselves. Not for television, for life. By fall, the cassette was more repair than plastic. It still moved. Strangers still signed the J card like a traveling guest book with sincerity as dress code. Tasks kept simplifying until they read like instructions for staying human when noise wants the win. Pass a seat forward, keep a kindness for later, change a light bulb and pretend it's a sunrise. Write do not skip on the next ordinary thing that deserves to be noticed. Some romances are centerpieces in speeches. This one held with errands, playlists, and the small bravery of showing up without a script. In a dozen cities, a blue cassette kept teaching people to stand in a familiar doorway, choose the different room, and go. If it finds you in Amarillo, Ocean Beach, or Providence, add something that forgives a Tuesday. Leave a task that makes the next person kinder by half an inch. Close the case and walk away without looking back.